So today I want to take you through creating a flow work approval for purchase order requests inside of Business Central. So we'll be using Business Central, the approval process, and Outlook. A quick breakdown of the steps is first what we're going to do is we have to set up users inside of Business Central. Then we need to set those users up under an approval user, and then we're going to set up an approval group. So we need to take these 3 steps before we get started with the approval flow. So now we're going to jump into Business Central, and we'll set everything up through here under My Company as the name of our company here. So first I'm going to go up here, and I set this stuff up already, but we're going to take a look at what I did. I'll show you where to go. So we'll go to User Setup, not Users, but User Setup. And then here you see that I've got a couple different users set up, just name, email. You can add them in through here. They need to be set up through your Microsoft tenant already, but that part will probably already be done for you. So after you create your users, then you go up here and you'll go to approval user. So we see approval user setup. Now, we're going to just ignore this middle line for a second, and we're going to look at the admin and the M. Thompson. So this screen here gives a list of the users, who can approve them, or if they approve a certain person or a sales code, and if there's different amounts that people can request or a limit on how much they can approve. So if you have different buckets, if a purchase order up to a certain amount can be approved by one person, then you would set those limitations in here. But the most basic group setup that you have to, or approval setup that you have to have here is at least 2 users. And they will end up being, right, so you have admin, and then the approver ID is M. Thompson, and vice versa. M. Thompson has an approver ID of admin. And then just to keep things simple and make sure that you can get the workflow to work first, I would just leave everything unlimited with no limitations, and that way you're not going to get stopped with anything there. You'll also set up your email address as well in here. And then for each user, for the news notification setup, go ahead and choose approval in email. And then of course you will specify one person as an approver administrator by checking that box. So that's how you set up your approval users. And then our final task here before we get going is going to be the workflow user group. Okay, so I've already set these up, but basically you would create new, and for the purchase order 1, you'll give it a code, and I just abbreviated purchase order approval, so I've got POA, and then I spelled it out here, and then I've got my two different people that you can add, whoever you're going to have in this work group. The sequence here is if you have a hierarchy of approval, then you can put whoever goes first and whoever is second. In the situation, I'm actually going to change this to 1 because I don't want there to be any hierarchy. I want them to all be on the same level. So that is how you can, and you can have as many people as you need in here. So that's how you set up the workflow group. Now that we have all of that done, we are ready to move into setting up the workflow. So first we'll use the waffle over here and we'll navigate to flow. And obviously, since we're logged in under the Microsoft tenant, it's going to be associated with whatever credentials you logged in. Now I happen to have some flows already set up here, so you can see some extras in my flow. But what you'll do is you'll start by going up here and you go to New. You'll do Create from Template, because we're going to use the purchase order approval template here. So we're going to do Purchase And here we see our purchase order approval icon, so we will use this. And what's nice is it shows you what it's connecting to, and then down here you see this flow will connect to, and it actually gives you like a run through of what it's doing, and it tells you the credentials that you're logged in under. And obviously the screen arrow gives us, the screen check mark gives us the indicator that everything is good to go, and we can hit continue. So from this screen, we have the template that Flow has populated for us. So really from here, it's just filling in some drop-down information. So for the company name, you'll indicate whatever company it is that you want this flow to run inside of. Sometimes you may have several companies set up. Sometimes you may have one. For our demonstration, we're going to do everything inside of My Company because that is where we just set up our users inside of Business Central. So this is the most primitive basis that we need for this, is just filling in the company. If you wanted to have some additional information, if you wanted a purchase order over a certain amount to be approved, then you can just put that number in here. If it was like 50,000 or something like that, then you could put it in there. But for this purpose, we're just going to leave 0. Like I said, I'd like to keep things really simple, make sure it works, and then go in and add some more fancy bells and whistles. So just be sure to be consistent in your naming structure all the way through, otherwise we'll get a little confused. So for this approval box, what you're going to do is you need to indicate who the email approver is going to be. So in this situation, I'm going to make the admin the approver, and then just delete that little semicolon. Leave all of this the same, and then you're just going to drop down here again and select My Company because that's the consistency that we're running across, and we have My Company here. Okay, so if we look down here a little bit further, we don't have to fill anything in. I will say that this email is going to be generic and ugly. But again, this is something that you can make fancy later on. Right now, we're just showing you how to set this up, and then you can set the rest up later. So that's all the generic information that we need, and we'll go ahead and hit save. And now we're ready to test our flow. So what we'll do is we'll hit test, and we'll say I'll perform the trigger action, and then save and test. So now this will circle until the trigger actions start. So what we'll do is we'll navigate over here. It's going to open another window. We'll go to Dynamics. Since we have this link to Business Central, we'll start here. We're already under My Company. So what we need to do is we need to go to Purchase Orders. Create New. And we have one set up here. Just do 10 and the unit price just to get some generic information here. Okay, so real quick, if we go back out here, we see that it says open, right? But now if we go back into this order, I'm going to have to, let's say I want to release it. It's going to tell me I can't because it needs to go through the approval process, okay? So we know that it's working. It's stopping us. It's not going to let us bypass the approval. So we're going to hit Send Approval Request. And now we see that it says Pending Approval. Additionally, we'll see that it will start to flow here in a second. So what we'll do is we'll go back in here into our email. Okay, so what I actually did is I had to change this approval. Scroll down here. the way that we set up our approval workflow to begin with, I had to point it at a different address or it wasn't going to start the trigger. So I had originally, I'll show you in a second, I had originally pointed it to the admin. It didn't like that, so I rerouted it to M. Thompson. And then I'm over here, I'm in M. Thompson email. And right here I see, right, this is what we created. Purchase order 10063 totaling $5 for test vendor. So we can verify that, right? 0063 for $5 for test vendor. So we can say with certainty that this is the correct one. So now we're going to say approve and submit. And then we see that that's approved. And we see here that it says that our flow ran successfully. So we can close that. And additionally, if we refresh our screen here, we see that this PO is now released. And then we can go back here to flows. What I like to do, so this is the one that we just did. I think it's really important to keep these managed well, to rename them. So here, if I do the edit from here, you get this details box, and I'm going to say YouTube PO approval, and I'll hit save. And then if I go back to my flows here, look, we know exactly which one it is. And then you can go into here and we see it'll also give you a run history as well. So that is how you can set up a primitive flow. But like I said, if you want to add some more intricate layers, there's a couple different places where you can put a limit on here. If you want it to approve over $15,000 or something to that extent, put that number in here. And then additionally, when you go down here to the condition, if you want your email to look different, you can go in here, drop all these down, and leave this syntax in here, but then you can kind of, put around it whatever additional formats that you want. So that's how you can set up a work approval and for a purchase order inside Business Central. Thanks so much.